Hello, precious one. You're welcome to our broadcast. My name is Samuel Afel. Today, I want to talk to you about temptations. When we say a man is being tempted, it means that he's being driven by an external force to do something that ordinarily he would not do. Sometimes your mind would really not be there, but the moment the object of your temptation appears, there is a sort of seduction. There is a driving force that tends to pull you to do something that ordinarily you would not do. And often, temptations leaves a man with two choices: either to fall to the temptation or to resist it. And there are many people, including Christians, who fall to temptations. And so we have to learn about temptations. Now, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 talks about temptation. It says, "There has no temptations taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it." Now, there are key things to consider in this scripture. Number one, temptations are common to man. You cannot be a human being and escape temptations. So long as you are a human being, temptations are inevitable. They will come. And so when you are being tempted from all angles, don't think that it is because God has left you. It must come. He says temptations are common to man. He didn't say they are common to inanimate objects or animals. They are common to man. So as long as you are a human being, temptations are bound to come. Now, man there means man. You can be a Christian and be tempted. You can be an unbeliever and be tempted. Everybody gets tempted. And so temptations are normal. He will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able. That means that any temptation that God allows, you have the capacity to handle it. That means that God will not allow any temptation that you cannot handle to befall you. And that is the faithfulness of God. And so if you are passing through it, then it means that God has given you the capacity to handle it. I often tell people who are going through diverse tests, diverse challenges, and they are saying, Charlie, why is this thing happening to me? And I usually tell them, it is happening to you because God has given you the capacity to handle it. Now, what things you can handle will be different from what things I can handle. Number two, we can always count on God's faithfulness when it comes to temptation. He said, but God is faithful. If there is somebody that we can vouch for his faithfulness, then it is God. Man can be unfaithful. Man can promise you today and tomorrow you will come in and you will say he was not even the one who promised you. But we can count on the faithfulness of God. I don't know what you are passing through right now. I don't know what you are going through. Is it sickness? Is it dejection? Is it pain? Is it shame? Is it trouble? Is it financial problem? Are you serving a living God? Then you can count on his faithfulness. There are many times that I have gotten to a crossroad not knowing what to do. But God's faithfulness always shows up. God always comes through for me. No matter how difficult it might be, I can always vouch for his faithfulness. He has promised to never leave us or forsake us. God will come through for you. So we can count on God's faithfulness. Anytime you are going through temptations, know that you have a faithful God. Now, what would the faithful God do? And so your temptations will be different from mine, even though we are all Christians. It depends on what you can handle. It depends on your ability. So God looks at your ability and allows temptations to befall your way. And so every temptation that comes your way, the faithful God is able to ensure that you will be able to handle it. There is another dimension to God's faithfulness. So the scripture continues. It says, but will the temptation also make a way to escape? He says that God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted above your strength level. Now, even though he will allow the temptation that you can handle to come upon you, he will also make a way of escape. Now, I call it double grace and double opportunity. Because one, if he has given you the capacity to handle it, then it means that you are able to pass through it and survive. But even though He has given you the capacity to handle the temptation, He will also make a way of an escape for you. That means that we actually have no excuse to fall to temptation. One, the temptation that came, God has given you the capacity to handle it. And even though He has given you the capacity to handle it, He will also make a way of an escape for you. That means that if the temptation comes upon you, all you need to do is to find a way of escape. Sometimes you need to run. Sometimes you need to be quiet. Sometimes you just need to observe. All these are ways to escape temptations. There are temptations that you will fall in when you talk. There are temptations that you will fall in when you run. There are temptations that you will fall in when you sit. There are temptations that requires you to run. And that kind of temptation usually is about fornication, adultery. That one you have to run. There are other temptations to that come. You have to sit and watch and keep your gaze on God. It depends on what temptations are befalling you. But even though He has given you the capacity, He will also make a way of escape. God will always make a way of escape. And so anytime you are being tempted, try to look for the way of escape. Ask yourself and ask God, what must I do with this temptation? How do I escape from this temptation? And God will show you the way. So beloved, temptations are not permanent. Everybody will have their phase of temptations. You will have your time to be tempted. I will have my time to be tempted. But the question is, will you be able to survive it? God will not allow the temptation that you can't handle to befall you. And even the one that you can handle, He will still make a way of escape for you. That means you and I, we don't have any excuse but to pass our temptation. I pray for you today. I pray that God will help you to stand in your day of temptation. I pray that from today, any temptation that comes your way, you will be able to stand. I pray for special grace for you. And I declare that from today, you will be able to survive all temptations that come your way. Temptations are not permanent. They must come. But when they come, know that you will be able to handle it. Even though you have the capacity to handle it, God will still make a way of escape for you. So look out for your way of escape when your temptation comes. God bless you.